Congratulations. You have just woken up in the year 1709. You are lying on a straw mattress in a stone cottage somewhere in the French countryside, and the first thing you notice is that you cannot feel your feet. The second thing you notice is that the air itself seems to have teeth. This is not metaphorical. The cold has a physical presence in this room. It presses against your face like a hand. It finds the gaps in the rough wool blanket covering your body and slides beneath it with the patience of something that knows it has already won. You are experiencing the Great Frost of 1709. The deadliest winter in recorded European history. A winter so severe that it will kill wine in cellars, split trees down to their roots, and turn the Mediterranean coastline into a landscape of ice. By the time spring arrives, if it arrives, roughly 600,000 people will be dead. You may be one of them. The temperature outside has dropped to somewhere near -23 degrees Celsius. For weeks. This is not a cold snap. This is not a hard frost. This is a climatic event so extreme that scientists centuries later will struggle to explain it. A combination of volcanic dimming, solar minimum, and atmospheric collapse that turned an entire continent into a killing floor. You do not know any of this, of course. You know only that hell has frozen over, and you are still in it. Birds have been falling from the sky. Not dying and then falling. Falling mid-flight, their hearts stopping in their chests, their wings locking, their small bodies hitting the snow like stones. You saw this yourself 3 days ago. A crow, tumbling from a bare oak branch, landing at your feet with a sound like a bag of nails. When you picked it up, its eye was still open, a black bead of glass, and its body was already stiff. You put it in your pocket. Protein is protein. Church bells across France have cracked. The metal, contracting in the cold, has split along invisible fault lines, and now when the bells ring for morning mass, they produce a flat, broken sound, like a scream cut short. You heard one shatter completely last week. The sound carried across the frozen fields, a high, sharp note followed by the crash of bronze hitting stone. The priest wept. You did not. You were too cold to weep. You are a peasant. This is not a romantic designation. You do not live in a quaint cottage with a thatched roof and a garden of herbs. You live in a stone box with a dirt floor and a hole in the roof for smoke. The walls are 2 feet thick, which helps in summer and does nothing now. The cold has soaked into the stone itself. When you press your hand against the wall, it feels like touching a corpse. Your boots are by the door. Leather, or what used to be leather. The cold has turned them into something else. Something rigid and unyielding, like wood that has been shaped into the form of boots. You will have to hold them over the fire, if you can get a fire started, just to soften them enough to force your feet inside. Last week, you made the mistake of trying to put them on while they were still frozen. The leather cracked across the toe. Now there is a split, a mouth, that lets in snow and wind and ensures that your right foot is always wet. You sit up. The straw beneath you crunches. It is frozen too, each stalk coated in a thin shell of ice from the moisture of your own breath during the night. The blanket falls away, and the cold rushes in to take its place. You are wearing a linen shirt, the same one you have worn for 6 days, and it is damp. Always damp. From sweat, from breath, from the moisture that seems to hang in the air and condense on every surface. The damp linen clings to your skin, and where it clings, it freezes. You can feel the fabric stiffening against your ribs, your back, the base of your neck. It is like wearing a shirt made of cold. There is bread on the table. A half loaf, dark rye, 3 days old. You reach for it and immediately regret it. The bread has frozen solid. It is no longer bread. It is a weapon. You could kill a man with this loaf. You could break a window. You set it down and it makes a sound like a hammer hitting wood. The room smells of smoke and rot and unwashed bodies. You cannot remember the last time you bathed. November, perhaps. You cannot remember the last time you were warm. The same. Your hands are chapped and cracked, the skin around your knuckles split and weeping. You have wrapped them in strips of cloth, but the cloth is dirty and the cuts are not healing. Nothing heals in cold like this. Your body has no resources to spare for healing. Every scrap of energy is devoted to staying alive for the next hour. You stand. Your knees crack. You are 34 years old, which makes you middle-aged, which makes you old. Your back hurts. Your teeth hurt. There is a pain in your chest that has been there for 2 weeks, a tightness that makes it hard to breathe deeply. You ignore it. Everyone has a pain in their chest. Everyone is coughing. The wet, rattling cough of lungs that are losing the fight. The fire is out. Of course the fire is out. You banked it last night, buried the coals under ash, and it still went out, because everything goes out in cold like this. The hearth is a black mouth filled with gray ash and the ghosts of logs. You kneel in front of it, and the cold from the stone floor immediately begins to seep through your knees, through the thin fabric of your breeches, into the bones themselves. You need to light a fire. This is not optional. Without fire, you will die. It is that simple. The wood is stacked against the far wall, and you crawl toward it, because crawling is easier than walking, because the cold has made your legs stiff and unreliable. The wood is damp. Of course the wood is damp. Everything is damp. The cold creates moisture, draws it out of the air, out of the walls, out of your lungs, and deposits it on every surface. The logs are covered in a fine layer of frost, and when you pick one up, it feels like lifting a block of ice. You carry 3 logs back to the hearth. You arrange them carefully, building a small structure, a tent of wood with space beneath for kindling. The kindling is a problem. You have a handful of straw, some wood shavings, a scrap of cloth so rotted it falls apart in your hands. Everything is damp. You hold the straw close to your mouth and breathe on it, trying to dry it with the warmth of your breath, but your breath is cold too. There is no warmth left in you. You have a flint and steel. Your hands are shaking. This is not nervousness. This is cold. Your muscles are misfiring, your fingers clumsy and thick. You strike the flint once, twice, 3 times. A spark jumps, lands on the straw, and dies. You strike again. Another spark. It glows for a moment, a tiny orange star, and then it too dies. You strike again. And again. And again. Your hands are cramping. The steel is slippery in your grip. You are breathing hard now, and each breath hurts, the cold air scouring your throat, your lungs. You can see your breath, a white cloud that hangs in front of your face and then dissipates into the gray light filtering through the gaps in the shutters. You strike the flint again, and this time the spark catches. A tiny flame, no bigger than your fingernail, appears in the nest of straw. You lean down, cupping your hands around it, and blow gently. The flame flickers. It shrinks. You blow again, softer this time, feeding it air without extinguishing it. The flame grows. It spreads to the wood shavings, and they catch, and for a moment there is light and warmth and hope. You add more kindling, a handful of straw, another scrap of cloth. The flames climb higher. You reach for the first log and place it carefully on top of the burning kindling. The log hisses. Steam rises from it, white and thick, and the flames beneath it shrink. The wood is too damp. It is smothering the fire. You watch as the flames struggle, as they fight against the moisture in the wood, and you know that you are going to lose. The fire is going to go out. You will have to start again. But the flames do not go out. They persist. Slowly, grudgingly, the heat begins to dry the surface of the log. The hissing stops. The flames grow stronger. You add a second log, then a third. The fire takes hold. Smoke begins to fill the room. There is no chimney. There is a hole in the roof, but it is small and the smoke does not care about it. The smoke spreads across the ceiling, a gray cloud that hangs in the air and then slowly descends. Your eyes begin to water. Your throat burns. You cough, and the cough turns into a fit, your body convulsing, your lungs trying to expel the smoke and the cold and the sickness that has been growing inside you for weeks. When the fit passes, you are on your hands and knees, gasping, and there is a taste of copper in your mouth. The fire is burning now. Truly burning. The heat reaches your face, and for the first time in hours, you feel something other than cold. It is not warmth. Not yet. It is the absence of cold. A small circle of not cold that extends perhaps 2 feet from the hearth. You move closer, as close as you can without burning yourself, and you hold out your hands. The skin is gray and waxy. The cracks are bleeding. You do not care. The heat is everything. Winter is a predator. You have known this all your life, but you have never understood it the way you understand it now. Winter hunts. It stalks. It waits for you to make a mistake, to let the fire go out, to fall asleep in the wrong position, to stop moving. And when you make that mistake, winter kills you. Quickly if you are lucky. Slowly if you are not. You are not lucky. Let's leave the cottage. Let's see if the rich are safer. You are walking now, trudging through snow that comes up to your knees, across frozen fields toward the palace at Versailles. The journey takes hours. Days, perhaps. Time has become difficult to measure when every moment is identical to the last. Cold. Walking. Cold. The sun, when it appears at all, is a pale disk behind clouds the color of iron. It provides no warmth. It is decoration. A painted circle on a gray canvas. The gates of Versailles rise before you like the bars of a cage built for giants. Gold leaf, or what you assume is gold leaf beneath the coating of ice. The metalwork is crusted with frost so thick it looks like white fur. The gates are closed. They are always closed now. Beyond them, you can see the palace itself, that monument to human ambition and royal vanity, and even from here you can see that something is wrong. The windows are dark. Most of them. A few show the flicker of firelight, small orange squares in the vast gray facade, but they are scattered and dim, like dying embers. You pass through the gates. No one stops you. The guards are inside, huddled around braziers, and they do not care who comes or goes. What is there to steal? What is there to damage? The cold has already stolen everything. The cold has already done the damage. The courtyard is empty. Snow has drifted against the walls, sculpted by wind into smooth curves that look almost intentional, almost decorative. Your footsteps break through the crust with each step, and the sound echoes off the stone, a rhythmic crunch that follows you across the open space. There are no birds. No movement. The statuary that lines the courtyard, those marble gods and goddesses in their eternal poses of triumph and seduction, are wrapped in canvas to protect them from the cold. They look like corpses. Shrouded bodies waiting for burial. You reach the doors and push them open. The hinges scream. Inside, the entrance hall is barely warmer than the courtyard. Your breath still clouds in front of your face. The floor is marble, black and white squares stretching away into shadow, and the cold radiates up from it like heat radiates from a fire. Standing on this floor is like standing on a sheet of ice. You can feel it through the soles of your boots, through the layers of rotted leather and damp cloth, straight into the bones of your feet. You walk deeper into the palace. The corridors are silent. Versailles was built to impress, to overwhelm, to remind every visitor of the power and glory of the Sun King, but now it feels abandoned. The tapestries on the walls hang limp and frost-rimed. The gilt frames around the paintings are dull, the gold obscured by condensation that has frozen into delicate patterns of ice. You pass a servant in the hallway, a young woman carrying an armload of wood, and her face is the color of candle wax. She does not look at you. She does not look at anything. She is focused entirely on the task of putting one foot in front of the other. You are walking toward the Hall of Mirrors. The greatest room in the greatest palace in Europe. A gallery 357 feet long, lined with 17 arched windows on one side and 17 arched mirrors on the other, designed to capture the light of the setting sun and multiply it into infinity. You have heard about this room. Everyone has heard about this room. It is a legend. A symbol. Proof that man can bend nature to his will, that beauty and order can be imposed on the chaos of the world. You step through the doorway, and the Hall of Mirrors stretches before you like a tunnel into nothing. It is dark. The windows, those 17 arches that were meant to flood the room with light, are black. Not because it is night. It is midday. Black because they are covered in frost. Thick, opaque frost that has transformed the glass into something that resembles stone. No light comes through. The mirrors on the opposite wall, those 357 individual panes of glass that were meant to reflect glory back upon itself, are frosted over as well. They do not reflect. They absorb. The room is a void. Your footsteps echo. The floor is parquet, intricate patterns of wood fitted together with the precision of a puzzle, and it is slick with a thin layer of ice. You walk slowly, carefully, each step producing a sharp click that bounces off the walls and the ceiling and comes back to you distorted and multiplied. Click. 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 It sounds like bones breaking. The ceiling above you is painted with scenes of military triumph. Louis XIV in battle, Louis XIV receiving the surrender of his enemies, Louis XIV ascending toward heaven surrounded by allegorical figures representing victory and justice and divine right. You cannot see any of this. The ceiling is lost in shadow. The cold has swallowed it. Halfway down the hall, you stop. You turn to face one of the mirrors, and you can just barely make out your own shape, a dark blur behind the frost. You reach up and wipe the surface with your hand. The ice is hard. It does not melt at your touch. You scrape at it with your fingernails, and small flakes come away, falling to the floor like snow. Beneath the frost, you catch a glimpse of your reflection. Gaunt. Hollow-eyed. A stranger. You continue walking. At the far end of the hall, there is a door, and beyond that door, you know, is the king's apartment. The Sun King himself. Louis XIV. The most powerful man in Europe. You wonder if he is warmer than you are. He is not. You find him in a small chamber off the main bedroom, sitting in a chair that has been pulled as close to the fireplace as physically possible without catching fire. He is wrapped in furs. Layers of them. Bear, wolf, ermine, all piled on top of each other until he looks less like a man and more like a heap of dead animals. His face is visible, barely, a small circle of pale skin surrounded by fur, and he is shivering. Louis XIV is 70 years old. He has ruled France for 68 of those years. He has built this palace, waged wars across Europe, centralized power in his own person to a degree that no French king before him ever dreamed possible. He has declared that he is the state. L'état, c'est moi. And now he sits by a fire that is struggling to stay lit, wrapped in the skins of beasts, shivering like a peasant. There are attendants in the room. Courtiers. A handful of them, standing as close to the fire as they dare, dressed in silks that were never meant for this kind of cold. One of them is holding a goblet. You watch as he pours wine from a crystal decanter into the goblet, a deep red vintage from the royal cellars, and he takes 3 steps toward the king to offer it to him. In those 3 steps, the wine freezes. Not completely. Not solid. But a skin of ice forms on the surface, a thin translucent sheet that catches the firelight. The attendant stops. He stares down at the goblet. He does not know what to do. The protocol for serving wine to the king does not include instructions for what to do when the wine freezes before it can be served. He stands there, holding the goblet, and the ice thickens. The king does not notice. Or he pretends not to notice. He is staring into the fire, his eyes half closed, his breath coming in shallow clouds. Another attendant approaches with a silver bowl filled with water, intending to offer it so the king can wash his hands before eating. Before the bowl reaches the king, the surface of the water begins to freeze. You can hear it. A faint crackling sound, like distant gunfire. The attendant freezes as well, mid-step, holding the bowl out in front of him like an offering to a god who is no longer listening. The room is full of drafts. You can feel them moving across the floor, cold currents of air that flow from one gap in the walls to another, finding every crack, every seam, every imperfection in the construction. Versailles was built quickly. Too quickly. The mortar between the stones was not given time to cure properly, and now the walls leak. Cold air pours in from outside, and warm air, what little there is, escapes. The windows rattle in their frames. A constant, low sound, like teeth chattering. The glass flexes and bows with each gust of wind, and you half expect it to shatter. The floor beneath your feet is stone. Marble in the public rooms, plain stone here in the private apartments, and it is so cold that standing on it feels like standing barefoot on a frozen lake. The cold rises from it in waves. It climbs up your legs, settles into your hips, your spine, your shoulders. No amount of fire can counteract it. The stone is a heat sink. It absorbs warmth and gives nothing back. The king coughs. A dry, hacking sound that goes on for too long. When it stops, He spits into a cloth held by one of the attendants. You cannot see what color the sputum is, but you can guess. Everyone is coughing blood now. The cold does that. It cracks the delicate tissues of the lungs, and then infection sets in, and then you drown in your own fluids. Slowly. Over days or weeks. One of the courtiers leans in and whispers something to the king. You cannot hear what is said, but you see the king's reaction. He shakes his head. A tiny movement, barely perceptible beneath the furs. No. Whatever was suggested, the answer is no. The courtier withdraws. He looks relieved. Making decisions requires energy, and no one has energy to spare. The fire pops. A log shifts, sending up a small shower of sparks that rise toward the ceiling and then die before they get there. The flames are struggling. The wood is damp, just like the wood in your cottage, just like all the wood in France. Everything is damp. Everything is frozen. The fire consumes the log slowly, grudgingly, producing more smoke than heat. The smoke hangs in the room, a gray haze that makes your eyes water and your throat burn. There is a chimney. A proper chimney, not just a hole in the roof. But even the chimney does not draw properly in cold like this. The air is too dense, too heavy. The smoke has nowhere to go. You look at the king, and the king looks at the fire, and for a moment you understand something that you have never understood before. The cold is the great equalizer. It does not care about your title or your wealth or your divine right. It does not care that you live in a palace or a cottage. It finds you wherever you are, and it kills you just the same. The king shivers. You shiver. The fire struggles. The wine freezes. The water freezes. Outside, the wind howls across the gardens, across the frozen fountains, across the orange trees that have died in their boxes despite every effort to save them. Winter has come to Versailles, and winter does not bow. It is morning now. You are still here, but you are no longer cold. You are warm. Safe. The danger has passed, and what remains is ritual. Endless, unchanging ritual. You are standing in the king's bedchamber at Versailles, and the king is waking up. This happens every day. It has happened every day for decades. It will happen every day until the king dies, and then it will happen for the next king, and the next, in exactly the same way, with exactly the same movements, spoken in exactly the same order. There is comfort in this. There is a terrible, numbing comfort in knowing that nothing will change. The room is dark. Heavy velvet curtains cover the windows, curtains the color of dried blood, lined with gold thread that catches no light because there is no light to catch. The curtains are closed. They are always closed at this hour. They will be opened later, at the precise moment dictated by protocol, by hands that have been chosen for this specific task and no other. For now, the room exists in a state of perpetual twilight, soft and muffled and still. The bed is enormous. A four-poster construction of carved oak and gilt, hung with more velvet, more gold thread, more fabric than you have seen in your entire life. The mattress is raised high off the floor, accessible only by a small set of steps, and the king lies in the center of it, a small shape beneath layers of blankets and furs. His breathing is audible. Slow and steady. In and out. In and out. The rhythm of it fills the silence. You are not alone in this room. There are others here, waiting in the shadows, standing perfectly still. They have been here for hours. They arrived before dawn and took their positions, and they have not moved. They will not move until they are required to move. This is their function. To wait. To be ready. To perform their designated role in the ceremony of the king's waking. The king stirs. A small movement beneath the blankets. His hand emerges, pale and thin, the skin papery and marked with liver spots. The hand reaches up and touches his face, rubbing at his eyes. This is the signal. The ceremony begins. The first valet of the bedchamber steps forward. He is a man of perhaps 50 years, dressed in black silk with white lace at his throat and wrists. His shoes make no sound on the carpet. He moves like a ghost, like something that exists between moments, and he approaches the bed with his head bowed. He does not look directly at the king. Not yet. That would be presumptuous. He stops at the foot of the bed and speaks. "Good morning, Your Majesty." His voice is soft. barely above a whisper. The king does not respond. The king never responds to the first greeting. This too is part of the ritual. The first valet waits. He counts to 10 in his head, slowly, and then he speaks again. "Your Majesty, it is time." The king opens his eyes. He blinks slowly, adjusting to the dim light, and then he nods. A single, small nod. The first valet bows and steps back. He turns to face the door and makes a gesture, a slight movement of his hand, and the door opens. The Grand Chamberlain enters. He is older than the first valet, closer to 60, and he wears red. Deep crimson velvet trimmed with ermine. He carries a long staff of office, polished wood capped with gold, and he holds it vertically as he walks, the base of it tapping against the floor with each step. Tap, tap, tap. He crosses the room and takes his position to the right of the bed. He bows. He says nothing. His presence is announcement enough. Behind him, others enter. They file in one by one, each taking a designated position around the bed, forming a loose semicircle. The keeper of the wardrobe. The master of the household. The superintendent of the king's buildings. Men with titles that describe functions that have been divided and subdivided until each man is responsible for one tiny aspect of the king's life. One man exists solely to hand the king his hat. Another exists solely to carry the king's handkerchief. They stand in their positions and they wait. The physicians enter next. There are 3 of them, dressed in black robes with white collars, carrying leather bags that contain instruments you cannot see. They approach the bed more closely than the others, and the first physician, the eldest of the 3, leans in and peers at the king's face. He examines the color of the king's skin. He looks at the king's eyes, checking for yellowing or cloudiness. He listens to the king's breathing. He does this every morning. He has done this every morning for years. The king tolerates it with the patience of a man who has no choice. The first physician steps back and nods to his colleagues. The king is alive. The king is well enough. The ceremony may continue. The first valet moves to the head of the bed and gently, carefully, pulls back the topmost blanket. He folds it with precise movements, each fold exactly the same width, and he drapes it over his arm. He pulls back the second blanket, folds it, drapes it. He pulls back the third blanket, and now the king is visible from the waist up, wearing a white linen nightshirt embroidered with gold thread at the collar. The king does not move. He lies there, propped up on pillows, his hands resting on top of the remaining blankets, and he stares at the ceiling. The Grand Chamberlain strikes the floor with his staff. Once, twice, 3 times. The sound echoes in the quiet room. This is the signal for the next phase. The washing. A servant enters carrying a silver basin. The basin is ornate, decorated with engravings of cherubs and vines, polished until it reflects the dim light like a mirror. The servant is young, perhaps 20, and his hands shake slightly as he carries the basin. He is nervous. This is an honor. This is also an opportunity to make a mistake, and mistakes are not tolerated. He sets the basin on a small table that has been placed beside the bed, and he steps back quickly, bowing as he retreats. Another servant enters with a crystal ewer filled with wine. Red wine, the same vintage that froze in the goblet yesterday, though this wine has been kept warm, stored close to a fire to prevent it from freezing again. The servant pours the wine into the basin. Slowly. The stream of liquid catches the light and seems to glow. The wine fills the basin halfway, and the servant stops pouring. He sets the ewer down and steps back. A third servant enters with another crystal ewer, this one filled with water. The water is warm. You can see steam rising from it in thin, delicate tendrils. The servant pours the water into the basin, mixing it with the wine. The ratio is precise. 2 parts wine to 1 part water. Always. This is tradition. This is how it has always been done. The water swirls into the wine, creating patterns, spirals of clear and red that blend and blur until the basin holds a liquid the color of rose petals. The first valet dips a white cloth into the basin. Linen, fine woven, softer than anything you have ever touched. He lifts the cloth and wrings it out, carefully, ensuring that no drops fall onto the carpet. He folds the cloth into a square. He approaches the king and pauses, waiting for permission. The king extends his right hand. The first valet takes the king's hand in his own. His grip is gentle, supporting the hand from beneath, and he begins to wash. He wipes the cloth across the back of the king's hand, moving from the wrist toward the fingertips. One stroke. He turns the hand over and wipes the palm. Another stroke. He wipes between each finger, taking his time, ensuring that every surface is touched by the damp cloth. The movements are slow, methodical, hypnotic. He finishes with the right hand and sets it down gently on the blanket. The king extends his left hand. The first valet repeats the process. Back of the hand. Palm. Between the fingers. Each movement is identical to the last. Each stroke of the cloth takes the same amount of time. There is a rhythm to it, a steady, unchanging rhythm that fills the room and makes the air feel thick and heavy. When both hands have been washed, the first valet sets the cloth aside and reaches for a towel. The towel is presented to him on a gold tray carried by yet another servant. The tray is held at exactly the right height, waist level, and the first valet lifts the towel without looking at it. He knows where it will be. It is always in the same place. The towel is white, pristine, embroidered along the edge with the royal fleur-de-lis in gold thread. The first valet unfolds the towel and drapes it over his left arm. He takes the king's right hand again and pats it dry. Small, gentle pats. He does not rub. Rubbing would be too rough, too undignified. He pats the back of the hand, the palm, between each finger. He sets the hand down and repeats the process with the left hand. Pat, pat, pat. The sound is soft, barely audible, like the sound of snow falling on cloth. The king's hands are dry now. The first valet folds the towel and returns it to the gold tray. The servant carrying the tray bows and steps back. Another servant steps forward and removes the silver basin, carrying it away as carefully as if it held the crown jewels. The table is removed. The space beside the bed is empty again. The Grand Chamberlain strikes his staff against the floor. Once. This is the signal for the next phase. The dressing will begin. But not yet. First, there is a pause. The king sits in his bed, his hands resting on the blankets, clean and dry, and he stares at nothing. The courtiers stand in their positions around the bed and wait. No one speaks. There is nothing to say. This moment exists solely to exist, a space between actions, a rest in the rhythm of the ceremony. You count your own breaths. In and out. In and out. The air in the room is warm now, heated by the fire that burns in the hearth, and it smells of wood smoke and wine and the faint, sweet scent of the perfume worn by the courtiers. The smell is pleasant. Calming. Your eyelids feel heavy. The pause continues. 1 minute. 2 minutes. Time stretches and compresses. You are not sure how long you have been standing here. It feels like hours. It feels like moments. The king does not move. His chest rises and falls with his breathing, steady and slow, and the blankets move with it, a gentle rhythm that matches the rhythm of your own breath. The first valet takes a step forward. He reaches for the topmost pillow behind the king's back and adjusts it. A tiny adjustment, barely perceptible, shifting the pillow perhaps an inch to the left. He steps back. He examines his work. He steps forward again and adjusts the pillow once more, shifting it back to where it was. He steps back. The pillow is perfect now. Exactly as it should be. The king closes his eyes. For a moment, you think he has fallen back asleep, but then he opens them again. He blinks. He stares at the canopy above the bed, at the fabric that hangs there in heavy folds, dark red velvet embroidered with gold suns. The suns seem to move in the firelight, flickering and shifting, and you find yourself staring at them as well. The Grand Chamberlain strikes his staff. Once. Twice. The sound is softer now, or perhaps you are simply becoming accustomed to it. The staff taps against the floor, and the vibration travels up through the wood, through the stone beneath, and you feel it in your feet, a gentle pulse that matches the beating of your heart. The shirt is brought forward now, held carefully in the hands of the master of the wardrobe, and even from where you stand you can see the quality of the fabric, the way it catches what little light exists in this room and transforms it into something softer, something that seems to glow from within. It is silk. White silk, woven so fine that you can see the shadow of the master's hands through it, the outline of his fingers visible as dark shapes beneath the translucent material. The silk has been embroidered along the collar and cuffs with thread so delicate it might have been spun by spiders, patterns of leaves and flowers and intertwining vines that curve and loop in designs that have no beginning and no end. The embroidery is white on white, visible only when the fabric shifts and the light catches the raised texture of the thread against the smooth surface of the silk. But the shirt is not placed on the king immediately. First, it must be warmed. The master of the wardrobe carries the shirt to the fireplace and holds it at a careful distance from the flames, close enough that the heat radiates into the fabric but not so close that the silk might scorch or the embroidery might yellow. He holds it there, turning it slowly, rotating it in his hands so that every part of the garment receives an equal measure of warmth. His movements are slow and deliberate, almost ceremonial, and you can see the concentration on his face, the way his eyes never leave the fabric, watching for any sign of damage, any hint that the silk is becoming too hot. The fire crackles softly. A log settles deeper into the coals and sends up a small shower of sparks that rise and disappear into the darkness of the chimney. The warmth from the hearth spreads outward in gentle waves, and you can feel it on your own face, a pleasant heat that makes your skin tingle and your muscles relax. The master of the wardrobe judges the shirt to be warm enough now, and he returns to the bedside, moving with the careful precision of someone carrying something precious and irreplaceable. He stops beside the king and waits. The king sits forward slightly, just enough to allow the nightshirt to be removed, and the first valet steps in to assist, grasping the hem of the linen nightshirt and lifting it slowly, carefully, up over the king's head. The king's skin is pale, marked with age spots and the fine lines of 7 decades of living. His shoulders are thin, almost fragile, and his chest rises and falls with shallow breaths. For a moment he sits there, bare from the waist up, vulnerable in a way that seems almost unbearable to witness, and then the master of the wardrobe moves forward with the silk shirt. The shirt is placed over the king's head with infinite care, the master's hands guiding the fabric down, ensuring that it does not catch on the king's chin or disturb the carefully arranged hair. The silk whispers as it moves, a sound so soft it is barely a sound at all, more like the memory of a sound, and it settles onto the king's shoulders with a weight that is hardly a weight, light as breath, warm as the air from the fire. The first valet smooths the fabric across the king's back, his hands moving in long, slow strokes from the shoulders down to the waist, pressing out any wrinkles, ensuring that the silk lies flat against the skin. The motion is rhythmic and soothing, and you can almost feel it yourself, the gentle pressure of hand smoothing fabric, the warmth of silk that has been heated by fire, the soft luxury of material that costs more than a peasant earns in a lifetime. The sleeves are adjusted next. The master of the wardrobe takes the king's right arm and guides it through the sleeve, pulling the fabric down until the cuff reaches the wrist, and then he fastens the small buttons at the cuff, tiny pearls set in gold, each one slipping through its corresponding loop with a quiet click. He repeats the process with the left sleeve. Right arm. Left arm. The movements are identical, mirror images of each other, and the symmetry of it is deeply satisfying in a way you cannot quite explain. The shirt is on. The king sits in the bed, dressed now in white silk, and the Grand Chamberlain strikes his staff once more against the floor. The sound reverberates through the room, a low tone that seems to hang in the air long after the staff has been lifted. The stockings are brought forward. They are carried on a velvet cushion by a young attendant whose only role in this entire ceremony is to carry this cushion at this specific moment. The stockings are folded with precision, lying side by side on the deep blue velvet, and they are red. Not the bright red of fresh blood, but a darker red, the color of garnets or wine that has been aged in oak barrels for years. The silk of the stockings is even finer than the silk of the shirt, so fine that it is almost transparent, and the fabric seems to shimmer as the attendant approaches the bed. The first valet takes the right stocking from the cushion and shakes it out gently, allowing the fabric to unfold and reveal its full length. The stocking is long, designed to reach from the foot all the way up to just above the knee, and it has been reinforced at the heel and toe with additional layers of silk to prevent wear. The attendant with the cushion kneels beside the bed, and the first valet kneels as well, and together they prepare to dress the king's legs. The king extends his right leg from beneath the blankets. The leg is thin, the muscles wasted with age and inactivity, and the skin is pale and marked with veins that show blue beneath the surface. The first valet takes the king's foot in his hands, supporting it gently, and he begins to work the stocking onto it, pulling the silk over the toes, over the arch, over the heel. The fabric clings to the skin, smooth and cool, and the valet works it upward with slow, careful movements, ensuring that there are no wrinkles, no bunching, no imperfections. The stocking reaches the calf and continues upward, past the knee, and the valet smooths it with his hands, running his palms along the length of the king's leg from ankle to thigh. The motion is gentle and deliberate, almost caressing, and the silk gleams in the firelight like the surface of still water. The left stocking is applied in the same manner. The same careful unfolding. The same slow pulling of fabric over skin. The same smoothing of wrinkles. Right leg. Left leg. The symmetry continues, and the rhythm of it is hypnotic, lulling, like the rocking of a boat on calm water or the swaying of branches in a gentle breeze. The garters are brought forward now, and these are extraordinary objects, small bands of silk ribbon decorated with buckles made of diamonds. The diamonds are tiny, each one no larger than a grain of rice, but there are dozens of them set into each buckle, and they catch the light and scatter it in all directions, creating small points of brilliance that dance across the walls and ceiling like stars. The first valet fastens the right garter just below the king's knee, wrapping the ribbon around the leg and securing the buckle with practiced ease. The diamonds flash as the buckle is tightened. He fastens the left garter in the same manner, and now the stockings are held in place, the red silk smooth and perfect against the king's pale skin. The shoes are brought forward on another cushion, this one black velvet, and the shoes themselves are works of art, constructed of leather so soft it might be mistaken for fabric, dyed a deep brown and polished until the surface reflects light like a mirror. The heels are high, adding perhaps 3 inches to the king's height, and the soles are painted red, a flash of color that will be visible only when the king walks, only when he lifts his foot and the underside of the shoe is briefly exposed. The buckles on the shoes are silver, engraved with the royal monogram, and they gleam against the dark leather. The first valet slides the right shoe onto the king's foot, easing the heel into place, and he fastens the buckle, threading the leather strap through the silver frame and pulling it snug. The buckle clicks closed. He repeats the process with the left shoe. Right foot. Left foot. The king is shod now, dressed from the waist down in red silk and brown leather and silver and diamonds. The Grand Chamberlain strikes his staff. The sound is familiar now, expected, and you barely register it. Your attention is focused on the king, on the slow transformation taking place before you, as the man becomes the monarch, as the vulnerable flesh is covered and adorned and elevated. The sword is brought forward last. It is carried by the captain of the guard, a tall man with a scar across his cheek and eyes that have seen too much. The sword rests on his upturned palms, balanced perfectly, and even at rest it radiates weight and power. The scabbard is black leather worked with gold, and the hilt is encrusted with diamonds that form patterns of suns and stars. The blade itself, you know, is Toledo steel, forged by master smiths and tempered in oil, sharp enough to cut silk and strong enough to turn aside another blade in combat. Not that the king will ever use it in combat. The sword is symbolic. The sword is decoration. The sword is a reminder that the king is not just the head of state but the commander of armies, the wielder of violence, the ultimate authority from whom all power flows. The captain approaches the bed and kneels, offering the sword with his head bowed. The first valet takes it and fastens it to the king's left hip, buckling the leather belt around the king's waist and adjusting the angle of the scabbard so that it hangs at precisely the correct position. The weight of the sword pulls at the belt, settles against the king's hip, and you can see the king adjust to it, shifting slightly to accommodate the extra mass. The diamonds on the hilt catch the firelight and throw it back in shattered fragments of brilliance. The sword is heavy. The sword is beautiful. The sword completes the costume. The king has left the chamber now, and you are released from the ritual. You turn away from the bed, away from the attendants who are already beginning the process of tidying the room, folding the nightshirt, removing the basin, erasing all evidence of the ceremony that has just concluded, and you walk toward the door. The corridors are empty. Your footsteps echo on the marble floors, a soft, rhythmic sound that follows you through the palace like a shadow. The walls seem taller now, the ceilings higher, and the paintings that hang in their gilded frames watch you pass with the patient indifference of things that have witnessed centuries and will witness centuries more. You walk past closed doors and darkened rooms, past tapestries that ripple slightly in drafts you cannot feel, past windows that show nothing but blackness beyond the glass. You reach the main doors and push them open, and the cold greets you like an old acquaintance. But it is not the same cold as before. You are not the peasant anymore, struggling to survive, fighting for every breath. You are something else now. An observer. A ghost moving through a frozen world. The cold touches your skin but does not enter. It surrounds you but does not claim you. You are safe. You are warm. You are watching. The gardens of Versailles stretch before you in the darkness, an expanse of white interrupted by the dark shapes of hedges and trees and statuary. Snow covers everything, smooth and untouched, and it glows faintly in the light of a moon you cannot see, hidden somewhere behind the clouds that press down against the earth like a hand against a mouth. You step off the stone terrace and into the snow. It comes up to your ankles, soft and yielding, and your footprints trail behind you like a confession, the only mark of human presence in this vast whiteness. The air is still. Perfectly still. There is no wind, no movement, nothing but the silence and the cold and the slow descent of snowflakes that drift down from the invisible sky. You walk deeper into the garden, following a path you can no longer see, guided only by memory or instinct or the pull of something you cannot name. The hedges rise on either side of you, geometric shapes trimmed into walls and arches and corridors, the work of gardeners who have shaped nature into submission, forced it to conform to lines and angles and the rigid aesthetics of French formal design. The hedges are covered in snow and ice, their branches bowed under the weight, and they lean inward as you pass, creating a tunnel that narrows and darkens until you can barely see what lies ahead. You emerge into an open space, a circular courtyard where several paths converge, and at the center stands a statue. It is marble. A woman, carved by hands that understood the human form with perfect clarity, depicted in the moment of transformation from mortal to myth. Daphne fleeing Apollo, her arms already becoming branches, her fingers stretching into twigs, her hair transforming into leaves. She is frozen in stone, and now she is frozen in ice as well, the moisture in the air having condensed and solidified on every surface of the sculpture until she is covered in a shell of translucent crystal. The ice follows the contours of the marble, accentuating every curve and fold, every detail of the sculptor's work. Her face is encased in it, her expression of fear and desperation visible beneath the frozen surface like something preserved in amber. Her reaching hands are thick with ice, the fingers blurred and softened, and icicles hang from her outstretched arms like the crystallized remnants of tears. She looks like she is sleeping. She looks like she is dreaming. She looks like she will stand here forever, caught between one form and another, between flesh and wood, between motion and stillness, until the world ends or the ice melts or someone comes to carry her away. You reach out and touch the statue. The ice is smooth and cold beneath your fingertips, and when you pull your hand away, a thin film of moisture clings to your skin, the warmth of your touch having melted the thinnest layer of ice. The water freezes again almost immediately, forming a new skin over the place where you touched, and it is as if you were never there. You move on. The paths branch and divide, leading off in different directions toward different sections of the garden, toward groves and parterres and hidden alcoves where benches wait beneath snow-covered pergolas. You choose a path at random and follow it, walking slowly, your breath clouding in front of your face and dissipating into the cold air. The fountain appears ahead of you, rising from the center of another circular courtyard, and you stop. It is frozen. The fountain was designed to celebrate water, to display it in motion, to send it climbing into the air in graceful arcs and spirals that would catch the sun and transform it into rainbows. But now the water is still. Frozen mid-spray, captured at the exact moment of its highest ascent, transformed into a sculpture of ice that rises 15 feet into the air. The central jet, which once shot water straight up toward the sky, is now a thick column of ice, ridged and textured where the spray froze layer upon layer, building on itself like the growth rings of a tree. Smaller jets, which once arced outward from the central column, are frozen in mid-flight, curving streams of ice that hang suspended in the air, defying gravity, held in place by the cold that has turned liquid into solid without allowing it to fall. The basin of the fountain is filled with ice as well, a smooth surface that reflects nothing, absorbs nothing, simply exists as a circle of frozen white. Small ridges and bumps mar the surface where ripples were caught and preserved, where the movement of water was stopped so suddenly that it left a record of itself behind. You walk closer, circling the fountain, examining it from different angles. The ice is blue in places, a deep azure that seems to glow from within, the color of glaciers or the heart of winter itself. In other places it is clear as glass, so transparent that you can see through it to the stone basin beneath, to the pipes and channels that once carried water up and out but now carry nothing. The fountain is a monument. A memorial. A testament to the power of cold to transform and preserve and stop time itself. You could stay here for hours, staring at it, tracing the lines of frozen water with your eyes, finding new details in the ice, but the snow is falling heavier now. It comes down in thick, soft flakes that drift and swirl in invisible currents of air. The flakes land on your shoulders, on your hair, on your upturned face, and they melt there, tiny points of cold that disappear almost as soon as you feel them. But more flakes follow, always more, an endless supply falling from a sky that seems to have no limit, no end. The world is turning white. The paths are disappearing beneath fresh snow, the statues are becoming shapeless mounds, the hedges are being softened and blurred until they are no longer walls but suggestions of walls, hints of structure in an increasingly formless landscape. The darkness is lifting somehow, not becoming brighter but becoming less dark, as if the snow itself is a source of light, reflecting and multiplying what little illumination exists until everything glows with a pale, diffuse luminescence. You can no longer see the palace. You can no longer see the fountain behind you. You can see only snow, falling and settling, covering and concealing, erasing everything. The silence is absolute now. The snow falls without sound. Your footsteps make no noise. Your breathing is quiet, so quiet that you can barely hear it, and the beating of your heart has slowed to a rhythm that is barely perceptible, a distant pulse that seems to come from somewhere outside your body, from the earth itself or the air or the snow. You are alone in the garden. You are alone in the world. There is nothing but whiteness and silence and cold. But the cold is outside. The cold cannot touch you. You are watching it from somewhere safe, somewhere warm, somewhere far away. You are standing in the snow but you are not standing in the snow. You are here and you are not here. You are drifting. The snow continues to fall. It covers your footprints, fills them in, erases the path you took to arrive at this place. Soon there will be no evidence that you were ever here. Soon there will be only the garden and the snow and the silence. The flakes are smaller now, finer, like dust or ash, and they fall more thickly, so thickly that they form a curtain between you and the world, a veil of white that obscures everything, and you can feel yourself being drawn into it, becoming part of it, dissolving into the whiteness like salt into water. Your eyelids are heavy. So heavy. The effort of keeping them open seems monumental, unnecessary. The snow is beautiful. The silence is perfect. There is nothing you need to do, nowhere you need to be. You can rest now. You can let go. The cold is outside. You are warm. Sleep now.